I'm Sarah Martin, the Estuaries Project Officer at the Corangamite CCMA, and I'll be talking to you now about estuary management and a bit of what happens behind the scenes. So the Corangamite CCMA works in the Curdies across a range of areas and programs, and the regulation of artificial estuary openings is just one aspect which I'll be talking about. We also work across on-ground riparian restoration, fishways and artificial fish habitats, and Jean Gardner will be talking about this on-ground work later in the afternoon. We also have Deidre Murphy will be talking about the Estuary Watch citizen science program, which she oversees for many years. So while I'm a relatively new face in the Curdies, Jean and Deidre will be familiar to many of you here today. And there's also eDNA citizen science we'll touch on. So there's also many programs that we won't be talking about today that the CCMA is also involved in. So about regulation of artificial estuary openings. So the Victorian Government's Victorian Water Management Strategy, which is publicly available on the DELP website, provides the statewide strategic direction for estuary management. And the Corangamite CCMA's role is to authorise requests from permit holders to artificially open estuaries under the Water Act 1989. And we do this with using the Estuary Entrance Management Support System, otherwise known as EEMS, which we use to assess the environmental, economic and social risks of opening an estuary. So the decision process for artificial estuary openings in the Curdies, I've made the diagram there as big as I possibly can, so if you can't read it, I will go through it step by step. So first CCMA receives a formal request from Parks Victoria and the Curdies requesting an artificial estuary opening. The Corangamite CCMA then organises an independent contractor to conduct testing. And so the key aspects of this is testing for dissolved oxygen, salinity, temperature and pH. And they test all up and down the estuary depths to really get a sense of what's happening in the water column. Using that data, we can impact assessment using EEMS. So we input that data into EEMS with the current height, and it generates it summarises the environmental, socioeconomic and cultural impacts of opening or not opening the estuary at different water levels and different times of year. We use that information to make a decision on whether the estuary can be opened at this time, and we pass that on to Parks. Parks Victoria then conduct a practicality assessment, which looks at whether a safe and effective opening can be carried out at that time. And then they make a decision that, yes, it can be carried out. And then the physical works using the excavator are carried out by Parks Victoria. So CCMA and Parks Victoria, that's the role that I've just outlined, but SES and Council also have different roles, and we all work together in this space. So just to summarise again, the Corangamite CCMA is the regulator of artificial estuary openings, conduct the risk assessment using EEMS, the Estuary Entrance Management Support System, and Parks Victoria are the permit holder for artificial openings in the Curdies and also conduct the physical opening of the estuary. So the State Emergency Service also has a role, and Bess Krause will be talking after Michael from Parks Victoria about the SES roles, which includes emergency flood management response from river flooding, flash flooding and storm surge. And Shire councils, so we've got Moyne Shire and Corangamite Shire that share both sides of the Curdies. They administer the planning scheme, maintain local infrastructure, coordinate emergency management at the municipal scale. So for Peterborough, of course, that's the Moyne Shire, and Bess will be talking about the Shire Flood Emergency Plan. So we also have the Curdies Estuary Management Plan, which was developed in 2017 with community and agency stakeholders, and this was led by the Corangamite CCMA. So the Corangamite CCMA has a high level of control and influence in some of those works that I had on my previous slide, in particular, the continuing support of Estuary Watch and the delivery of riparian restoration, which Jean will be talking about. There are other actions in the plan, such as upgrades to built infrastructure, which may be led by other agencies, and all stakeholders are subject to funding opportunities to deliver the actions. So something that Lance has touched on and that came out of some questions that we had from attendees was about blue-green algae in the Curdies. So I just wanted to run through the process when a blue-green algae bloom occurs in the Curdies. So I'll just jump on more. So to report a blue-green algae bloom, contact DELP Barwon Southwest on 136186, and I'm happy to post that in someone. So that a bloom sighting is reported to DELP. Wannon Water conduct water sampling on behalf of DELP, and DELP install the warning signage at the side of the bloom if it is considered to be at a toxic level. So that's what occurred last May. So another question that came from the audience was about the EPBC listing for salt wedge estuaries. So the federal government, so the EPBC stands for Environment Protection and Biodiversity Conservation Act, hence it's shortened to EPBC. So that was listed by the federal government as endangered in October 2018. And so the map here is showing the extent of the open coast salt wedge estuaries of Western and Central Victoria that were listed. So it's really about the assemblage of species, the ecological community within these estuaries. So there's a fantastic information on the federal government website if you want to go have a look. But the official classification is the assemblage of native plants, animals and microorganisms associated with the dynamic salt wedge estuary systems that occur within the temperate climate microtidal regime, high wave energy coastline of Western and Central Victoria. So that touches on some of the things that Sarah McSweeney spoke about in her presentation. So this is a great diagram also in the EPBC document about what a salt wedge estuary is and the different sort of characteristics of what is a highly dynamic system. And this is just a summary of the threats that were identified by the federal government that influenced the listing of salt wedge estuaries as endangered. So, of course, climate change, land use and associated decline in water quality, which Deidre and Jim will be touching about in their presentations later today. Modification of natural flow regimes, invasive species and disease, and recreation and extractive activities. So that's in regards to water extraction. So the conservation advice from the federal government in 2018 identified some priority research and conservation actions. And one of the key things in terms of Victorian estuaries is that the current estuary management arrangements through EAMS are to continue, but also looking at research and conservation actions to enhance resilience to climate change by reducing other pressures, so upstream pressures and pressures in the estuary, maintaining the natural flow regime of open and closed for salt wedge estuaries, minimise the water quality impacts caused by runoff, which we'll look at in later presentations, and restoration of riparian and buffer zones. So there's more information on the conservation advice, which I will post in the chat. And it's a 37-page document, if anyone who wants to go have a look. So finally, I'll just, hopefully this will work. I wanted to show you something that we've been working on last year during COVID lockdown, is an interactive map of all the estuaries along the Corangamite region with some data from WIMIS, which is the Victorian Government database for gauges. And we've integrated that data with some data from the Flickr post, an Estuary Watch site. So I'll just go and show you how it works. This is live on our CCMA website right now. Rhiannon, I can only see you. Can you see the website now? Just give me a thumbs up. Rhiannon? Yeah, awesome. Okay, so this is, and I'll post the link to this in the chat as well. But this is Estuaries of the Corangamite region, an interactive map. So you can scroll over these buttons and there is information behind everything that changes colour when you scroll over it. So I'll open up Peterborough because that's what we're today. And so this is extracting data from the Victorian Government website. So we can click more information. And you can see, you can play around with, so this shows you where the gauge is in the Curdies Inlet. You can look at current data. Just ignore this salinity one because we just need to replace the sensor there. Salt water is not good for gauges. They need to be picks up quite a lot. But here is the graph to show, so I can play around with different, I can look at the last 12 months of water levels. Sometimes this is all loading from the WMIS website, so sometimes it takes a little while. Still loading. There we go. So you can zoom in on different events. You can reset. You can compare, say, water level and dissolved oxygen. So it'll bring up two graphs, one underneath each other, so you can compare them. They won't combine the graphs, obviously, because they're different parameters. You can make some interesting comparisons. And so, yeah, this is publicly available. There's also, you can click on Fluker posts. So Fluker posts are, you all would have seen the one at the Peterborough headland there. So these are the photos from that post. So it's a great citizen science data set. So you can explore that. And then also, of course, Estuary Watch, which Deidre Murphy will be talking about later. So you can go directly here to the monitoring portal for Estuary Watch.